Live from the Transitional Radio Uplink in Cuenca, Ecuador, you're listening to All Natural Being with guest host Henry G. Noel. What's the G stand for? Giddy Up on IPMNation.com. Here's Henry.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this, the 355th episode of Brian Brody's All Natural Being, the #1 rated show on IPMNation.com and brought to you by Transitional Radio. Now, we are live this evening on IPMNation.com, Transitional Radio's Facebook and YouTube pages, with Fly on the Wall video on Facebook and YouTube, with rebroadcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and a whole host of others. We are broadcasting live this evening from our international uplink studio in Cuenca, Ecuador. And we want to thank our good friends at Wirecast for actually making it possible for us to be broadcasting not only live, but globally. So we thank you. And we want to thank you, also thank you and our trusted listeners, for without you, there would be really no reason for me to be hanging out here tonight. So again, thank you for those listening on live radio, those listening to our rebroadcasts, and thank you also to our Fly on the Wall video listeners. We do find it far more enjoyable having you participating in the thread and sharing your ideas and your opinions. So to all of our listeners from all over the globe, from places like, well, the United States, Ecuador, Ireland, the UK, Canada, Colombia, Philippines, Australia, Germany, Cambodia, New Zealand, Bulgaria, Mexico, Argentina, Bangladesh, Brazil, Algeria, France, India, Pakistan, Palestine, Belgium, the Dominican Republic, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, Laos, Malaysia, Peru, Romania, Senegal, Turkey, Spain, Singapore, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Liberia, Nepal, and tonight we get to add Switzerland, Mongolia, and Slovenia. So thank you all for trusting us and for investing your valuable time. We are very much aware of the many other ways you could be spending your valuable time. So thank you so much for choosing to be spending it with us. We really do appreciate it, and it's wonderful having you here. Now, my name is Henry Noel, guest hosting for our good friend and, well, shunt tosser, Brian Brody. I wonder if shunt tossing will become an Olympic sport. You know, if it does, he's a shoo-in. I am thrilled to be filling in for our virtual hitchhiker. So, from 2 degrees south of the equator, where the girth of the Earth exceeds the full body scale, we want you to understand, regardless of where you are on this fabulous globe, your life is still your jungle, and in spite of what you think and believe, you get to carve out your own path one step at a time. Rip out the underbrush suppressing your the passion to live the life that's the way you wanted to live it. And why cow down to the sport of others who just want to ridicule you? You were dealt a hand, so why not play with all the passion you can find and play it the way you dreamt you would play it, the way you said you would play it, if only you were given a chance. Well, by God, this is your chance. So no one is more qualified to control your life than you. So why cave in to the pundits who presume they are in control of you? Why allow the opinions of others to derail you from your all-natural being? Don't get caught up in all of the moronic insanity others use to demoralize you. Use your primal scream to stand tall and proud, front and center, and don't place yourself in second place. You're better than that. And we're here to ensure you have your day in the sun as your friendly force, placing your heart's highest priority top of the list, reinstating the true wisdom and wallop of your inner whisper, pushing you to terminate the turmoil in your life, limit the liability of your luggage, and streamline your sensibility so you can face this crazy world head on and out brutal the brutal. All this so you can bring on your own bold once and for all. So get prepared for audio acupuncture, where we treat the points of your philosophical chronic pain and providing auricular therapy for your anxiety, medical qigong for your mind, body, and spirit, and Reiki for your rationality, all to provide a natural healing approach to the medical mayhem we call life. So welcome to Healing in the Nth Degree. Are you ready? Are you comfortable? Then kick off your shoes, kick back. Let's get this show started. Now, we trust that everyone had a good weekend and has had a productive Monday thus far. And we thank you for joining us on this Monday evening. So tonight we are going to continue with our assessment of the past 2 years of tuning into all natural being and taking the information and presented to you to help you with the change and the self-renewal and ourselves and improving our lives. So tonight we're going to continue with part 4 of belief systems. Part 6, I'm sorry. So for all of the radio listeners who'd like to give us their questions and their opinions, please email me and email your questions to me at henry@henrygnoel.com. I'll be happy to answer them. If you're listening to our rebroadcasts and want your opinions and voice heard, please email me and I will reply. I'm trying to create an avenue for everyone to be actively involved in this show so you can all discover your all natural being. So let's get into this evening. Let's get it underway and let's get into the thread so we can actually see who all has actually braved the forces to come in and take and participate in all of this. So this evening, let me, if I can click on this and get this working. Hi, Wayne, I appreciate you being there. Thank you. Alice, welcome. Welcome to tonight's show. Thank you so much. And let's see, we have John. Welcome, John. And Marie, thank you for joining us. It's great to see you. Hey, hello back at you all. It's great to have you. Yeah, tonight we're going to go ahead and we'll delve back into belief systems. And I know you've had a chance to kind of stew on some of this a little bit, so don't hesitate to pop questions in that don't even relate to this. You know, if they relate to the hate or the fear or the honesty or the other shows that we have dealt with, you know, don't hesitate to bring those up. That's not a problem. We certainly can reply to those because I think it's all appropriate. But tonight we are going to really get back into belief systems because we kind of barely touched the surface of it, just to give it an overview. So what we're going to do is tonight we're going to continue with our assessment of the past 2 years of listening to this show and how our seeking to change and self-reflect and self-renewal is actually going. In part 1, we discussed honesty and the importance honesty not only plays in our desires to change ourselves, self-reflect and self-renew, but the importance it plays in discovering who we really are. In part 2, we looked at fear and the devastating effects fear plays in our lives, past, present, and future. We also presented ways we can reduce the amount of fears controlling our lives. In part 3, we discussed hate and how hate develops, from where hate develops, and what we can do to stop hate. We also discussed social categorization and its role in the creation of hate. In part 4, we focused on labels, how we are not the labels we identify ourselves with, the negative impact labels have on us, and society's guilt in using labels to profile and categorize us. Again, social categorization. In part 5, we barely touched on guilt. We identified where guilt comes from. We talked about the reasons why we harbor guilt. We touched on some of the effects that guilt has on our health and our lives, and we introduced some of the ways we can reduce our guilt. We also demonstrated how each of these topics affect each other and how they are so intertwined in their weaving the tapestry of our lives. In part 6, we began the topic of belief systems by covering what belief systems are and how do belief systems come about. So tonight we are going to go ahead and start in again with belief systems and try to carry this a little bit further. Janelle, welcome to the show this evening. It's great to have you here. Thank you. So tonight we will continue with belief systems and how we are controlled by them. With the addition of belief systems to our convoluted tapestry of life, we add the element of blind faith to our lives, creating the justification to be manipulated into believing that which is unnecessary or may be untrue and may not even be real. Belief systems will be covered over the course of several evenings because the seriousness and depth with which belief systems affect us in our lives is so critical. It's so invasive. So with that said, let's continue with this very controversial topic and see what rabbit hole we can delve into and still come out somewhat unscathed. Changed, perhaps, but unscathed. So, as was presented on Tuesday evening, and that's the last time we covered this, belief systems are the stories that we have been told and continue to tell ourselves to assist us in defining our personal sense of what we believe is reality. Every human being has beliefs they utilize to make sense of the world around us. Our perceived reality is created by our learnings and experiences and modified by our beliefs as we try to make sense of the perceptions and experiences that we all undergo. Because we require the world to make sense, people construct hundreds of individual beliefs from which we continue the storytelling about how the world works. We use these beliefs to cope with events in our lives. In short, we use beliefs when our sense of reality comes into question. We use belief systems when areas of our sense of reality is vague. We fall back on our beliefs, especially when our sense of reality comes into question or is attacked. Our beliefs define us, and we define our beliefs. Now, our beliefs are reinforced by culture, theology, experience, training, and society. Our cultural views, stereotypes, political viewpoints, and religious followings are all determined and reinforced by society's belief systems. Beliefs don't have to have any basis in reality, so long as the belief provides a constant, dependable, adequate, and reasonable explanation that satisfies the phenomenon that we have in question. So, for example, how was the universe formed? There's the question. Now, one belief is by intelligent design. Another belief is by an explosion and happenstance. Another belief is it has always existed. And another belief is the universe doesn't really exist at all. It's all an illusion. Now, another example, how did we get here? One of the beliefs is the intelligent designer of the universe collected dirt and blew life into us. Another belief is we evolved from primates. Another is we evolved from the chemicals created in some primordial soup. Another belief is we were brought here from some other part of the universe by aliens. Another belief is we were primates and were genetically modified by aliens into our present form. So as you can see, for every belief we have, there are a multitude of other beliefs to either support or refute what it is we all believe in. So that begs the question, are belief systems valid? And what goes into creating a belief system? So to stop there for a minute, so we have several different aspects. And again, this is just touching on specific belief systems or categories with belief systems. And just to understand how pervasive it is and how different it is for everyone when it comes to belief systems. Now, there are several characteristics within belief systems. Actually, there are many, but that go into the creation of a belief system. Now, remember, every belief system has its own set of characteristics: religion, politics, finance, society, aliens, and climate control all have their own set of criteria, their own set of characteristics that define them as a belief system. Now, We'll get into the major belief systems of religion, politics, and morality as the subject, as we progress into the subject, but it probably won't be tonight. But tonight, I will be addressing the basic characteristics of belief systems in general, and we will stick to the general concept of belief systems because it's really tough to once you get into in understanding what it goes into the characteristics of a belief system it's much better to know before we get into the major topics of the major important belief systems. So some of these characteristics are: there exists a personal commitment to the belief system itself. And it is the personal commitment to the belief system where society takes on the belief as real or as fact or as illusion. The very existence of and requirement to perpetuate the belief system is accepted by you and me and or society as normal. So, for example, politics. Politics is a belief system in existence for two purposes: power and control. If humanity advanced beyond belief systems and could govern themselves appropriately, the need for government wouldn't even exist. The utopian belief system. But of course, utopia could never exist because of humanity and its belief systems. So politics thrives as a self-perpetuating necessity, and we accept it as normal. Now, another characteristic is, regardless of the commitment of the believers to the belief system exists in its entirety, even if the believers don't completely believe in the entire belief system. In fact, believers may not even know the entirety of a belief system, and yet we take on the beliefs solely on faith. For example, religion. No one knows all the nuances of any religion, yet we follow our religion blindly and will defend it to the death, never questioning our religious leaders or even taking the time to investigate the historical facts about our religion and why it was created. A third characteristic: there may be psychological reasons why individuals commit to a belief system, but there are no justifications to why human society is so connected to belief systems. Now, we might develop a sense of security by holding on to a belief system. It might give us a sense of purpose or a sense of comfort. But in actuality, there is no justification in believing in the belief systems we believe in. A lot of beliefs there. Most belief systems live longer than the believers. Religion, politics, war, conflicts, our senses are all belief systems, having been around a lot longer than we have, and will continue ad nauseum until we wake up and decide we no longer need them. Belief systems cover pretty much the gamut of our life experiences. Most areas of our lives are steeped in belief systems. The stories we're told, the education we received, and our life experiences ensure we will always have belief systems to count on. And if a question develops to confuse our life, you can count on the fact we'll create a belief system to help define it. Now, belief systems cross many boundaries. There are no real defined boundaries for belief systems or their justification. We create belief systems to answer immediate unknowns, and we modify our belief systems when the unknown is either answered or no longer an issue. But the belief system seems to always go on. And it's very interesting. There can be limitless belief systems in place that respond to the same question or phenomenon. We examined this earlier with the question, where did we come from and how was the universe formed? Belief systems are in part concerned with existence and non-existence of certain external entities. For example, God or gods, Satan, witches, demons, national pride, conspiracies, human effects on climate. These are all examples of such entities. So insisting that some entity exists as the central focus of the belief system lends itself to other beliefs, where the central focus does not exist. So God is not real. No such thing as witches, or climate change is a natural process, not human-caused. So belief systems often include the presentation of an alternative world, typically this alternative world is this present world the way it should be rather than the way it is. The utopian belief system imposes this characteristic. The world must be changed so we can achieve some idealized state. It is predicted, it's predicated on the political, economic, and social factors that must change in order to eliminate the defectiveness of the present system. Now, this is exactly what we're doing by trying to eliminate the fear, hate, and discrimination in the world and replace it with love. We are trying to change the world into some utopian state we based on all of our prejudices, fears, and hates and define as good or better. So we're actually taking our own prejudices, our own ideas and perceptions of what's right or wrong, and we're actually trying to change the world into some utopian state based on what we think and what we believe. So belief systems rely on good and bad, or right and wrong, and those are simply ideas. But as we have discussed, good and bad and right and wrong are perceptions created by moral and ethical components of, guess what? Belief systems. So here we have components of a belief system actually building other belief systems. And this goes on ad nauseum. Belief systems are composed of substantial amounts of personal experience, folklore, propaganda, stories, and concocted ideas trying to explain something that is either unexplainable, and not necessarily based on fact, or perceptions tainted by other belief systems. So, your opinions up to now, we all deal with them. We all have them. We all have to define ourselves and face ourselves in the mirror based on them. So everything that we deal with in our life is a belief system, and we can all have multitudes of different belief systems and actually have the same belief system and think totally opposite in it. So it is a multifaceted situation with belief systems, and yet this belief systems it's the major component of our lives, of how we define our lives and how we live our lives and how we make determinations as to what is right and wrong, or what is good and bad, or who is a threat and who isn't a threat. All of that goes into these belief systems, and that is where we are at, really, as far as human terms. And you see it out there every day. It is a mess out there, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to use our own perceptions, our belief systems, to try to right a wrong that is also defined by a belief system. So when it comes to belief systems, we have a lot to learn. Why these belief systems are in effect, why they have such a hold on us, and why we rely on them even to the point of our willingness to kill or be killed for them. Why are we right? And why are they wrong? It's us and them. And that is the belief system. And we have accepted it without question. So my question is to you, actually, is so why? Why have we accepted that as the way it's supposed to be? Why is it that everything gets created into us and them? So Maria says we have to have some sort of moral standard. Otherwise, how will we know that things like murder and stealing are wrong? And, I absolutely agree with you, Maria. I really do. And yet when you look at societies, all societies, past and present, I used the example the other day, headhunters, not the guys trying to find you a job, but headhunters in real. They hunted and took heads of their enemies. Now, that was their moral standard. They were upholding their belief system that they could not be controlled by their enemy if they took their head, and that would give them the control over their enemy. So that's their belief system, and it's their moral standard. So who's to say our moral standard is correct? And like you said, things like murder and or stealing that are wrong. Yes, in our standard, they are wrong. But in some societies, it's not wrong. It is the way that that society sees themselves. So again, these are all perceptions that we have, and that's what we have to start to understand: is that there are differences in views from our viewpoint, and it goes through all of these different categories between the religion, politics, and with climate control and 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 pollution and all of this stuff. Everything deals with a belief system, but ours is not necessarily correct, or it is. I can't stand in judgment on it. John says the lack of access to knowledge is clouded or judgment of what belief system we should be following. Once we get all of the pieces of the puzzle, we can start putting it together. And you're absolutely right, John. And it's taking our belief systems and setting them aside while we listen to someone else's opinions and the way that they see things and the way that they were raised on things. So we have to be tolerant as to not impose our beliefs and then fight to impose our beliefs, to react when someone disagrees with our beliefs, then we react, and when there comes the argument. So yes, we have to take things in stride. And as we piece these pieces of the puzzle together, it starts to form a new tapestry of life as humans are supposed to be living it. So it is extremely difficult. And like I said, that's why this topic is so hard, because we have to really step outside of ourselves, step outside the box in order to really address it. It is an extremely complicated process. And throw on top of that the previous stuff we've talked about between hate and fear and guilt and labels and honesty. We really have a bag of stuff that we have to really iron out and reason for. So the way we were raised or the way we identify ourselves may not be who we really are. It has been all this programming that we have gone through, all this learning that we've gone through, that has developed who we are. And so that's why it is so important to really understand the fact that we really don't know who we ourselves are. We are a combination of belief systems, of learnings, and our experiences. And again, our experiences are tainted by our belief systems and our teachings, our learnings. This is what has gone into us, and this is who we say we are. And that's why I say we don't have a clue who we are, because there's too much that has covered up the who we really were at the very beginning. And who are we now? But a compilation of who we were, plus all of this stuff that has turned us into who we are now as we see ourselves. And that's the part that we really have to understand. So why will we not question something that seems a bit off color? That's another good question. We've taken religion, politics, we've taken climate, we've taken all of this stuff at face value. We haven't investigated it. We haven't researched it. We turn on some news program to listen to their opinion as to what's going on. And of course, it's their opinion. And then we buy into it. It becomes a belief system. So there becomes an issue. If we were that interested in trying to find out what it was all about, we'd be far better off, because then at least it's our own opinions. It's our own judgment. John says if the foundation isn't square, then the whole house will be out of square. Absolutely right, John. It sure is. And if any component within there, if any component in building that house, its belief system, it's honesty, it's guilt, it's all of this stuff, any component that is not quite right, not quite level, yes, you're right. The house will be out of square, as we will be. So why do we accept belief systems as our way of life? For example, religions condoning murder and war. And they all have at one time or another. So why do we buy into this? Why is it okay for the Catholic religion to have done the Crusades? And now we question the Islamic and their configuration. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that every religion has condoned murder and war, and yet we still have a belief in religion. Why? Why? Why is it that natural medicines are being ridiculed? Or why are Western medical doctors being defrocked because of treatment disagreements with Western medical dogma? They go against the AMA, they lose their license. And one that I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed it when it occurred, we must pass the congressional bill to find out what's in it. You got to be kidding me. I mean, come on, let's get serious here. We don't question any of this. We simply accept it and live the lives we were given. Why do we do this? Why do we not question anything? We simply accept it as fact when it may not have anything to do with fact or reality for that matter. John says, or worse, they lose their lives. Yes, absolutely right, John. And there is the issue. So somewhere we have to start questioning. And that is the whole concept behind my thinking we envisioned is, I want to make you think. I don't want you to sit there and accept what is being preached out there for politics or for climate or for the healthiness of food or medicine. I want you to question. I want you to get out there and question people. Find out. Have enough chutzpah to go and research for yourself. Come up with your own opinion and definition of what the Bible meant or what the Quran means or, what the Torah meant. We have gotten so complacent in our lives to not bother to research. We'd rather sit down, whether it's in front of a television or whether it's in a pew in a church or in the mosque or in a synagogue, and have somebody tell us their opinion. Why? I just don't get it. So one of the things that I've always said is war will end. Not because men will get bored with it, because men have always rallied around war. It'll be when women stand up unified and proclaim, you, Mr. Leaders, you will not take my children to fight your stupid egotistical war. You want the war? You want this conflict? It's that important to you? Good. Then you go fight it for yourselves. War will continue until somebody stands up and says, I've had enough. You're not taking my kids. I'm not going to do that. They're not fighting your battle. You get in the ring. You guys duke it out, and we'll deal with the results. So, it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek, but to me, that is exactly what we're missing at this point. So now, what really goes into the creation of a belief system? We covered some of that with the social categorization because of the way society is, and it ties very, very, very much into belief systems. So some of the following elements are some of the components that scholars say formulate belief systems. Now, I'm no scholar, and I'm presenting these with several reservations because I simply disagree with portions of their beliefs. But to be fair, it needs to be presented, and I will explain the discrepancies as they arise. So first is values. Your values are classified as elements of belief systems. We all have individual values, and these values are different for each of us. When we group ourselves under social categorization, all the members take these values into the in-group. Some of the values may be accepted by the group and its members, and some may not be accepted by the group or its members. So as a member of the group, we then must decide on the acceptability of the group's values as presented. Now, these values then become belief systems of the group. Now, my issue with this goes back to trying to define the word by using the very word in a definition. So whether implied or clearly defined, values, to me, are in themselves beliefs. Because each member of the group has developed their own values from their learnings, their experiences, their stories, and their perceptions. And this is how we define belief systems in the first place. So belief systems are supposed to be defined or to help define what is good or valuable. But good and valuable are perceptions and come from our learnings, experiences, and stories. And they are belief systems in themselves. So it's extremely difficult when you're really trying to deal with values. And Maria, you talked about that when you mentioned the thing about having a moral standard, some sort of a moral standard, and like whether or not murder or stealing is wrong. That's what the values are, and values themselves are perceptions. They are morals. They are belief systems. And so that's why this is such a tough topic and why it's so circular in its creation, where you simply start, you will end up ending and do the whole route again. Now, substance is considered important to beliefs because it's the foundation that the belief systems are built on. For example, making the statements such as "we the people," or "God exists," or "the world is flat," okay? That comprise the actual content of the belief system and may take almost any form. For believers, the substance is the focus of the belief. Those who disbelieve in the substance of this particular belief system create the alternative belief system. In this case, they are the people, not we, or God doesn't exist, or the world is not flat. You see, belief systems are not necessarily comprised of fact, as we have been stating. At best, most belief systems are composed of conjecture. Remember, belief systems have their basis on stories, and the best storytellers become the best beliefs. So it is a very tough subject, and in its entirety, which is why it's so difficult to go through this whole thing. Now, Mary says, but why is it against the law to murder and not just a suggestion? Because the laws were originally created based on religion, mostly. I mean, most governments were religious run. I mean, England still is. When you look at it, and we're just a offshoot from England. And yes, we had this separation of church and state, so some religion could not take over the country. How's that going for you? I mean, it's tough. And I think that's what it was. So the laws are based on, yes, values that were taken from religious text, religious context. And that is what creates most of the laws that we have. Remember, when we covered specifically the laws or the way the guilt, I think it was more covered under guilt. Our whole legal system is based on guilt. Innocence, of course, but it's based on guilt. And if you look at the laws that are written are for the minority group of people, those that commit the laws. So you have to read Miranda rights to someone who has committed a crime. You have to make sure that they have a speedy trial. You have to make sure that they have legal representation. If they can't afford it, it'll be provided for them. Think about that. The majority of the people don't commit crimes. So the laws are established for the minority of people. And all of our, everything that we have to do, you need a driver's license. And again, yes, it creates money for the state. But why do you need a driver's license? If you can drive, you drive, and if you can't, you can't. But people that couldn't drive or caused trouble or drank while they drove simply caused us to have to do this stuff. You have other circumstances out there that have all been created because of the few, and that is what is so upside down with the way the legal system runs. Maria asked, do you believe that there is an absolute truth? Very good question. I love that. I know, and one of the things we'll be getting into at some point in time, absolutely will. Is there an absolute truth? I I believe that there is an absolute truth, and I believe we all knew that absolute truth. I believe where we came from is literally the consciousness, and we came here to experience what it is we are going to experience, but we've lost sight of the fact that we came from consciousness, and that is where we will go. This body is expendable. And once we leave this body, that consciousness goes back to the consciousness, takes back its experiences. So I believe there is an absolute truth. Now, what is that absolute truth? I don't know, Maria. I really don't know. I'm searching this, just like everybody else is. John says they may have been created out of trying to do the right thing originally, but somewhere they got off track and were corrupted. And I think that goes pretty much for the way it is. I think it's very difficult to deal with these subjects because we all have so many different belief systems, and we have identified ourselves with those systems. And so it's taking a step back. So like absolute truth really is a belief system, but it's new. It's not something that's old. The absolute truth, or is something that is now being searched for. I mean, you look at even science, physics, quantum physics is searching for the absolute truth. But we can't even decide how the universe was created. We can't even come up and decide, how long we've been on this planet. We have no idea. So the absolute truth, I believe there is an absolute truth. Somewhere out there is the truth. Oh, will we ever find it? I don't know. It's a good question. And you got to remember also that every time we get close to finding a truth, somebody comes up with a belief system and just says, I just don't believe that. And here we go. We go off on the deep end again. Okay, I think we're down to about a minute. I'm getting a signal from my brother, I think. And so we have about a minute to go, see how things wrap up here. And we'll continue again where I left off here, because I think it is really important to understand how belief systems really, really, really control us, and how they really, really affect us, and how we are affected by them. So it is extremely difficult to just say that this is the way it is, because it's so hard to wrap your head around something that's outside something you've believed your whole life. And I think that's really where we go. Let's see. John says that we have relied on the what's right and wrong, and it continues to get corrupted. It's time to focus on what works and what does not work, instead of what's right and what's wrong. And that's a very, very plausible. Maria, you said, how does the majority know what is the right thing? There you go. And then it's all perception. And this is what we have to start to realize. This is all of what controls us. So with that, guys, thank you so much for the participation in there. Everyone out in Radio Land, if you have questions, you want to put your 2 cents in on this subject, you're coming in from different countries. I mean, 40 some odd countries now that we're being listened in. So please, I know you all have opinions. You all have your own ideas, and you all have different religions from these different countries. So please, write to me. I'd be more than happy to respond to you, and I'd love to get your opinions. I'd love to hear from you around the world. So everyone, thank you very much. You guys have a great evening. We will talk at you tomorrow, and we'll continue with this belief systems. All right? Have a great night, everybody. Thanks a million, man. Hasta luego.